Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast, the show where we fearlessly dive into the untold stories of real estate investors' greatest setbacks and how they turned those failures into resounding successes. I'm your host, Kate Berry, and we're talking with real estate investors across the country to learn exactly how and why they failed, and how they took that failure and turned it into a powerful lesson for their business. So come along with me, Kate Berry, on this transformative journey from failure to fortune. I invite you to join our supportive community where together we can inspire, educate, and motivate each other to achieve all of our real estate investing goals. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. I'm your host, Kate Berry. On this show, we dive deep into the journeys of real estate investors and agents who have experienced failures, but are willing to share the lessons learned that help them turn those failures into fortunes. We are thrilled to be here today again with a returning guest, Tom Miller. Tom Miller is a listing and buyer specialist out of Fort Myers, Naples area of Florida. And Tom also has a business, the Haven Capital Ventures, which is a private equity sponsor for real estate investments and syndications, specializing in manufactured housing community investing. So welcome back, Tom.
Welcome. Good to be back. I'm really enjoying.
Good, thanks. So, catch us up to speed. What have you been doing since we last talked?
Well, we brought out our second fund in the private equity sector to finance the purchase of manufactured housing communities through select markets throughout the country. And so far, pretty good success. We have 4 properties under contract. Well, we have 1 property, and then we have 3 under contract we're closing on very shortly. And nice. We have several others that are in the pipeline that'll be coming online here by the end of the year, hopefully. Depending on our investors coming forward. We have several now and doing very well with it.
Right. And where are these? These are all parks?
Yes, they are. There's a 48 space park we took over in Marion, North Carolina, the first of the year. That's done very well. It did very well under the previous fund owner, and it's already improved substantially. There were some infrastructure issues that needed to be addressed. We have addressed them and filled up some empty spaces, and we have 1 more space to fill, and we're going to have a full park. Right. And then we have 3 under contract in, of all places, Montana. And we found a market up there that was very tight on affordable housing, and a seller of the 3 mobile home parks that he really didn't know the industry, hasn't done. He was acting more like a slumlord. So we've had to go in, and we're already started fixing up some of the issues, getting the park back in shape, getting some of the infrastructure back online and operating properly, fixing up some homes, getting them rented out and cleaned up, fixing up a home, the homes that we have renters in right now that are in need of some repairs. So we just did that over the weekend with one of ours. So we have those 3. We have several in Texas I'm going down to look at in about 2 weeks.
Oh, exciting.
So
could we maybe
really
dive a little bit deep into this business that you're in, and how you're, firstly, how you're finding the markets, because you mentioned affordable housing crisis, being maybe a criteria that you're looking for. So how are you identifying these markets, and then how are you finding the parks? Are you calling sellers directly? Are you driving around, or you've got people on the ground? How are you finding these deals?
Our staff knows a lot of people. My CFO was this chief financial officer, chief investment officer, chief intelligence officer for the 5th largest owner of mobile home parks in the country. He retired from there and has come on with me as a partner. He's doing those same duties here, and he's identified 13,000 potential purchase properties, ones that we look at that fit our criteria, the markets we're looking at, the size of parks we're looking at. And he does all the business intelligence. He's
great.
He had a background with the big four accounting firms, so he's very well versed on accounting and what it takes. It's all about the numbers, and
Yep.
you
Yeah,
really have to keep up
absolutely.
with them.
Yep.
You have to look at them. You have to know what the market can bear, and then do what you can to make the changes necessary to make it a reduce costs, increase revenues,
Yep.
and make the residents happy.
Yep. Right. Absolutely. And are you finding that you're, in terms of funding these deals, are investors excited about the mobile home park still? Are they, what are you seeing on the investor side?
The investor side, we usually go with smaller investors. The larger investors, a lot of times like more stable investments
Sure.
initially. I mean, we take them over. It's not that they're going down or anything. We don't buy a property unless it's cash flowing positive. But what we do is usually uh, in real estate, you have about 60% of your revenue goes to operate the property, keep the homes or whatever the commercial property is that you're buying to make an investment.
Mm-hmm.
With mobile home parks, the actual cash cost of operating a park is about 30% of revenue.
Wow.
So you have a much larger margin. Now, again, you're
Sure.
not getting as much revenue per door or per home,
Mm-hmm.
but you are having a lot lower expense to operate that
Right.
park. So we can buy more doors, we can operate more doors and show higher returns. Plus, on top of that, one of the big things that several of our investors like is the tax advantages, where
Oh.
you depreciate a commercial property over 39 years,
Mm-hmm.
a residential property over 27 and a half years. The average depreciation cycle in a mobile home park is about 15 years. So
Wow.
you have, it's not necessarily accelerated depreciation. It's just that it can, the depreciable asset can, part of the asset can be depreciated over a shorter period of time. And most people think, well, that's only a small amount because no, it's not. The infrastructure in the goodwill in the business is what we depreciate, and that's
Mm,
75% or more of the purchase price of the property. So
right.
it has a good tax write-off kickback to the
Yes.
investors. And through our private equity funds, we run a passive investor limited partner position, and they do take advantage of the tax write-offs.
That's
And
brilliant.
then
If
because of
you
the
if you could, for our listeners who may be, just getting started in real estate and or maybe they're interested in learning more about real estate and they've heard, oh, there's tax advantages to buying real estate, but they may not understand what a depreciable asset means. Could you maybe break that down a little bit for our listeners?
Yeah, the capital land is not depreciable because it doesn't grow. It's
Right.
not something that you're improving or anything like that. You have a piece of property that's not depreciable, but everything else on that property is. That includes infrastructure, buildings, structure, uh, roads,
Yeah.
anything else that you put in, uh, clubhouse, all that stuff is depreciable. And it depends on what it is and how long its life expectancy is as to how long you can take to depreciate the asset. And then once you buy an asset, like most real estate, commercial, residential, is financed for shorter periods of time. Like you get a
Mm,
30-year mortgage on a house. On a commercial asset, be it a residential or residential investment property or like a mobile home park or whatever, they're depreciated over a shorter period, and
mhm.
you can write that stuff down. You can write it off on your taxes. So
Right.
yes, we kick off a fair amount of cash, but a good portion, if not all of that cash, is uh, tax deductible. Is
And
not tax free, but you're deferring the tax because you're writing down the depreciation on the property
yeah.
and using that to defer your income.
And do you
And
ever
then
consider doing cost segregation on these parks? Where is that possible to do where you can take, you can accelerate the depreciation?
it's possible. There's all kinds of tax investment structures, and it usually has to do with the exit structure.
Mm.
How you're going to, at the end of the hold period,
Yep.
what are you going to do with the property? What are you going to have to recoup? What are you going to have to pay back in taxes? Usually all capital gains because it's been held for more than a year.
Yeah.
In our case, we like to hold our parks for 3 years to 5 years.
Nice.
We try, as soon as the assets doubled in value, we go out and look for lending source to refinance the portfolio, usually at a lower rate. And it depends on the size of the portfolio. We can even get institutional investors, institutional lenders to come in and give us a real good finance rate, and maybe even extend the term for a few more years. And then that way we get all of our investors' initial cash back to them within the first few years.
Yep.
And they're still getting the tax write-offs, the cash flow from operations.
Yep.
And then when we sell the property, they get the cash. They get the cash from the sale.
From the sale,
which,
right?
In our case, we try to get our investor returns from operations in the mid 15%. You know, the 11 to 15% range is our sweet spot
Nice.
per year.
Yep. Yep.
And then we shoot for IRRs at the end of the hold period when we sell the properties in the mid 20s. In our current fund, we projected 26.5% return IRR.
That's great.
And
People must
the
be
past
excited about
fund,
that.
yeah, the past fund had what was it, a 29.6 IRR return rate for the investors. We had projected 22.
Yep.
So
Right. That feels good, right?
it did very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think
They're cash
why do you think it did
cows.
so well?
Because it's an asset class that it's not a glamorous asset class, is about the
Right.
best way to describe it. It's not your strip centers or commercial buildings or your trophy office buildings or
Sure.
whatever the case may be that people look for normally. They try to find Class A properties, Class B properties. We look for Class C and D properties and turn them into a B or a C.
Right. Well, I think that's where, how do you make money in real estate? You have to add value, right? You have to take something and figure out, yeah, where is it bleeding? Where can you reduce the expenses? And where can you add value to fill a need in the market? And, so before we were talking, or before we started recording, we were talking about, affordability and why mobile home parks could be a solution for a lot of markets that have an affordability crisis. So it's not that they are lacking demand, and maybe not even necessarily lacking supply, but we can't put them together. And so maybe a mobile home park is a good solution for that.
Yeah, they are. They really are, because I mean, if you take an old park, upgrade the homes a little bit, get them looking nice again, fix up the issues with them. I mean, you're talking about in a market where rents are 1,200, 1,500 a month for an apartment, you can get into a mobile home, own the home, and have your total out-of-pocket cost each month be less than $1,000.
Yeah, that's
Now, when I say total, I'm talking about your mortgage and your land rent. You have your utilities and everything else, but you have that in any property.
Yeah, of course.
But just on the cost side, it could be under $1,000 a month.
Yep.
What's nice about that too is we have programs. If we buy homes in a park that are 20, 30, 15, anywhere from 15 to 30 years old, we'll do what we call a rent credit program. And somebody that can't get into a home because they don't have a big down payment or they don't qualify for the mortgage, with our rent credit program, they pay just a slight premium over what they would pay to just rent. But after whatever period of time, we figure it anywhere from, it could be as low as 12 months to as high as 60 or 120 months. And they own the home free and clear at that point.
Wow, that's great.
We sign the title over. We sign the title over to them, and then all they're responsible for at that point is the land rent. Land
Yep.
rent can run anywhere from 350 to 7. I've seen it as high as 7, 8. Some areas higher, but the average
Yeah.
is about 450. So you could be living in a home that you own free and clear, and the land rent's costing you 450 a month.
Right. Wow.
That's not bad, and
Yeah.
that makes, especially for retirees that are on a fixed income, that makes it a whole lot easier. And if you have the cash, like you're retiring, you have the cash to buy a house. Problem with people when they retire and when they do their investing, they think of their home as it is an investment, but it's not a retirement investment.
Right. Not according to Rich Dad, Poor
Because
Dad.
yeah, exactly. Well,
That's a
you
liability.
know what I'm talking about.
I do.
It's not it's an asset, but it's not an asset class, because in order to take the cash out of that asset, you have to sell it or
Right.
do worse yet, a reverse mortgage.
Mhm.
Everybody says they're great. To me, it's a waste of money, because you could have put your money elsewhere and done a whole lot better.
Right. Well,
But
you're
anyway,
living off the equity
I
instead of letting the
digress.
equity grow, and
Right,
yeah, it's not doing what it's supposed to do as an asset.
right. So 75% of most retirement income is in the equity in their home, their
Mm,
primary residence.
right.
So all of a sudden they're 5, 10 years away from retiring, and it's like, I don't have the money to retire. How am I going to do this? And they look at options. They either sell the house, or they look at reverse mortgages, or moving in with family, and that's the last thing I want to see.
Right, right.
Or there is an option, and that's mobile home parks.
Mhm.
Uh, Retirement parks, 55 plus parks, or I'm here in Florida, so they're very big down here. And
Sure.
they also have a lot of them throughout the country. But with a mobile home park, for instance, a new home, a brand new single wide 65 3-bed 2-bath, 65-foot long, like 14, 16-foot wide, 3-bed 2-bath, you can get into that for $75,000 plus your
Right.
land rent.
Right.
A
That's
double
right.
wide, which even gives you more space up into the 11s and 1200s, is going to be about 110, 120,000. If you're
Mhm.
selling a $400,000 or $500,000 house, you're going to clear 110 or 65 or 75 or 80,000 to
Yeah.
120,000. You pay
Right.
cash for it, and all you have to worry about is your payment on the land rent.
Yeah. And then you should put the
And
other 300 into a real estate investment. Right.
right, take that 300 and put it in with one of our funds, and you wind up. Just kidding, but you put it in with you put it in with an
Right.
investment that's showing high returns and doesn't have a high risk.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
exactly.
can get 15%, that's 45,000 a year
It sounds like a pretty
on.
good strategy for some folks right now because a lot of people have experienced, very, very high appreciation in their home, especially if they didn't sell, during the pandemic, or they bought, pre 2016. They're looking pretty good right now.
Right, and there's a Berkshire Hathaway backed company that happens to be owned by Clayton Homes, which is owned by Berkshire Hathaway.
Mhm.
It's 21st Mortgage, and
Mhm.
21st, when the mobile home communities, the industry, had its financial meltdown in 2000, a lot of the dealers, you saw a lot of mobile home dealers disappear, and the stream to sell homes, the network to sell homes, went away overnight.
Wow.
So manufacturers have to either open up their own stores or deal with the few that remain,
Yep.
or they work with a program like 21st has with park owners. 21st will come to a park owner. They will buy 3 or 4 homes, starting out though, as long as you meet their size requirement and their licensing requirements.
Mhm.
They'll put 3 to 4 brand new homes in your park, no cost to the park owner. It's a little more depth than that, but that's
Right.
basically what it means,
Wow.
is they put it in. And the other side of the coin is when you see builders building stick-built developments, how many of those developers will take recourse on the note that you take out to buy your home? It's a big fat zero.
Yeah.
They will not take any risk
No.
in your home. the mobile home parks
Right.
that use the 21st mortgage cash program, they will 21st will finance the potential customers that want to move into the home, and they'll give really decent rates, and they'll look at much lower credit ratings
Yeah.
because as part of the deal, the park owner takes recourse. There's not as much risk as there sounds to that, because when he takes recourse, if the person's starting to get behind on his rent, he's going to see it on his
Right.
lot rent. If he's getting behind on the mortgage company's got to let him know right away.
Right.
And we have a chance to work with the resident to find out what's the issue. Is it something we can help you with?
Yeah.
Or good park owners will do that.
Yeah.
Or you need to turn this back to the mortgage company. I take over, in the case of a home that I have in a park, I take over the payments.
Mhm.
I pay back the back payments, and I take over the payments until I find a new buyer. And when I find a new buyer, I mean, my risk is extremely low
Right.
when a deal like that happens. And somebody gets into a house, they have pride of home ownership. My partner, he says mobile home parks are like apartment buildings with land for each unit.
True. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very similar in size, and you have your own yard.
Yeah. And I mean, I can imagine that the demand at that price range, especially when you're providing nice units, it's pretty high, I would assume.
Exactly. It is. It's very, even when you're not providing the nice units, it's still pretty high.
Right.
A well-run park can stay at 96 to 98% occupancy with no problems.
Oh, with no issues
Uh,
with that vacancy.
yeah, if they take care of the land, if they take care of the residents, they take care of the homes and keep the infrastructure up and running properly.
Mhm.
The residents that come into a mobile home park stay for life. They really do. The average
Yeah.
resident in a mobile home park stays 11 years. The average resident in an apartment building stays, what is it, 2.5
I was
years?
gonna say it's 2
I
years.
think
Yeah.
yeah, something like
And the
that.
turnover, that
So
turnover is a killer, right? It's like you said,
it is.
you want you ask people, and good property park owners will try to work with their people because they understand, that the turnover is a killer. You lose your cash flow. You have to use a lot of resources and time to refill it.
Right.
It's a drain.
And if you look at it like we do, to buy a mobile home park where the homes in the park are owned by the residents, a fully owned residential owned park, we can get the spaces for under 35,000 a space.
Yeah.
Usually much less than that,
Right.
depending on the market. But the average is about 20-25,
Yep.
and they can go as high and or as down as low as 11. I've seen
Yep.
them at 11, but 11 requires a lot of capex.
Yeah.
You buy an apartment complex, you're going to spend 90 to 175 a door.
Yep.
175,000, 90 to
Yeah.
175,000 a door. So you're getting in at a much lower cost. You can have a lot more revenue coming in, you spread the risk a lot more over many more homes, many more doors, as real estate investors like to call it.
Yeah.
And you're in a better situation.
Yep.
And if you work with the community, you can turn that park that they don't like initially into something that they're absolutely ecstatic with. That's what
Yeah, I
happened to the
love
park
that.
that we took
Right.
over. We took a park over in the Marion Park in North Carolina. We took over in January, and by July, we had the zoning board and the planning commission saying that the park is back. They
Oh,
fixed it
that's
up. It really
great.
looks great. We paved one of the roads of the two roads in the park, the big one. And since we paved that road, we get 5 phone calls a week of people looking for a place to live.
Wow.
Before that, it was about 1 or 2 a month. So
Oh my
just
gosh.
making a change in the appearance of a park can make a big difference in the success.
Well, then you're also indicating that you are going to, you're going to make improvements, and, that might be an indicator that's the first of many more improvements to come. So, as an investor, look as a buyer thinking, where's going to have some good appreciation. That's going to be,
Oh yeah,
buying a lot, or, a mobile home in a park that is going to increase in value.
right. Now, mobile home parks back in the 70s and 80s, HUD had a program, a financing program for parks. And they
Hmm.
had to meet a certain standard. They had to have paved roads,
Hmm.
curbing, and stuff like that. New homes with paved driveways, almost like a regular residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they gave them really good terms. They were able to get really good financing with HUD backing to do those. Well, June of this year, FHA and HUD started a program for mobile home park owners, existing mobile home parks. They want to take the older parks that are in disrepair
Hmm.
and help the owner of those parks bring them back into a good neighborly community. They clean up the infrastructure, they clean up the homes, get rid of the
Yep.
the
Right.
riffraff. Uh, I've we've actually found that several states now are starting initiatives to help mobile home park owners uh, fix up their parks. As a matter of fact, I believe Iowa, one of the see Davenport. I'm not sure that's where it was, but I was reading an article and that there was a city in Iowa that actually bought a park from an owner, fixed it up, and they rented out as affordable housing to the residents of the community. The states and the cities and the counties are starting to get involved again. We've
Yes.
already been working with a city. Uh, we have one park we've been looking at. It's about a 58 space park. The city and zoning and county and the state are really coming down on the park owner. And I've had meetings with them, and I've been on zoning and county commissioner meetings where we put a proposal in. This is what we want to do. This is what it's going to take for us, and this is what we ask from the county, from the
Hmm.
city, and from the state. And they're really receptive.
Yeah, I'm
They
sure.
want to see a deeper plan. They want to see what we're going to do, but it's probably going to take us another 6 months to get the approvals we want.
Yeah.
But we could take that park over. It's on its own well and what's called packaging plant, which means their own waste treatment plant,
Yeah. Wow.
private one. We'll
Yep.
be able to abandon that and have city water and sewer. The city will help get the water and sewer into the park. It's only about a half a mile away.
Hmm. Yep.
And then the county will help us get infrastructure issues straightened out. Uh, the state has a commission, affordable housing commission, that we're talking to about what's available from state in the way of grants. I mean, a really intelligent park owner can come in and turn a park around without having a lot of out-of-pocket costs, and can turn it into a really financially sound investment
Yes, and
quickly.
I'm sure that, local governments and state governments are certainly interested in looking at these models, because, we talk about the housing crisis and affordability crisis is really being very widespread, right? And a lot of
Yeah,
places are struggling to figure out, how do we solve this problem? People need housing, but the cost to build, or the difficulties in new developments and construction, can just make it that there's no incentive, right? Because no one is making money on the other
right.
end if they're trying to keep it affordable. And so they're looking for alternative solutions, and they're looking for people that can come to them with those solutions and resources and systems in place. And you're already doing.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're finding, I mean, the interest from communities is really high. Now, getting back to the issue I talked about earlier with the tax structure,
Hmm.
there can't be that much of a change in the tax structure because it won't keep it as affordable housing.
Right.
It'll turn it into just regular housing. So where the affordable housing is going, the niche is going to fit in my mind is going to be first-time home buyers
Hmm.
or young uh, individuals or couples starting a family, and retirees that are looking for a low-cost way to retire.
Yep.
And I see those two as being the market, where the city's not too worried about the tax structure on those anyway, but they're just trying to keep residents there for the revenue to the market,
Yes.
to the businesses in the area.
The labor
And
markets.
they're trying to keep the young people, they're trying to keep the labor market good and keep the young people from leaving.
Yes.
So
That's what I feel
it really,
we're facing that too in Vermont. You know, it is about encouraging people to move here and live here, and at the same time helping people stay here, and want to, not have to move to a city for more opportunities or housing.
right. And that's the issue, and that's where it's going to be. And I think, we've already put together a model we're working with to take the cities, take the counties. When we go in, we have a 500-point checklist when we do a due diligence checklist when we buy a park. And part of that we've added is we sit down with the city government, the county government, the state government, the police, fire, and we see what issues are we having in this area? What can be done to make this a better place?
Yep.
And they love it. They really do. I mean, they see somebody coming in that's not just trying to make the maximum amount of money that they can out of something, out of an asset,
or build more
that they're
luxury
really
homes, or do something like
or
that.
exactly
Really gonna help them solve their greater problems.
exactly. It is. It really will.
Yeah, I
And
love
this
this,
is
Tom.
one way to do it.
It's really, yeah, it is one way to do it. And I think it is a way to, to look at investing in a different way too, that it's not just about, flipping or making this, great margin on luxury. There's plenty of money to be made in affordable housing, and there's plenty of money to be made in helping out communities. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but you help, affordable housing and not make money. There's ways to economically do that everybody wins. And I love that. I love what you're doing. I think that it's really fantastic. And so, in our show notes, we'll have all the ways to get in touch with you. But, for our listeners who maybe want to reach out and learn more and how to get involved, what's the best way for folks to reach you?
Well, havencapitalventures.com is our website, and our toll-free number is 800-757-4642. And option 2 is our investor hotline.
Perfect. Yes. Call, get involved, get investing, get those returns, and keep doing it, right? It sounds like you're scaling as well.
We are. And we can always use more money. We can always use more investors.
Nice.
And there's a lot to happen. I mean, when you have a market of 13,000 and 2% of those a year are for sale in any given year.
Yeah.
That's still 2,600 or 260 parks a year. We're buying about 5 or 10. So
right. So there's still
there's
more to go.
Plenty to go. Yep. We have
Plenty to
plenty of
go.
options.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for being on our show today and diving deep into this topic. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's definitely a great way to start thinking about real estate and how to make money in today's market and how to help improve the housing crisis. So thank you again for coming on the show. And for our listeners, this is the Failures to Fortunes podcast. I'm your host, Kate Berry, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Kate. Look forward to being back again sometime.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. If you enjoyed today's stories and insights, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us. Remember, your journey in real estate is a marathon, not a sprint. Embrace the failures, learn from them, and turn them into your stepping stones to success. I'm Kate Berry, and until next time, keep hustling, stay inspired, and keep turning those failures into fortunes. Happy investing.